Hello and welcome to the Foundry podcast. It is August 13th and we're going to talk today about the 3 steps, and I'm assuming this is the 3 steps towards love, towards consciousness.
Well, that would be a good direction.
Yeah.
I don't know. How are you doing with consciousness? I mean, you're on a journey, right? A consciousness journey, like Correct. The rest of us. Yes. All right. So how do you see that going, and what do you see as your next step, and what's a couple of steps past that? And what are you going to do next to see that you take at least the step that's in front of you? Have you got a plan for that, or are you just taking it as it comes, making it up as you go along?
Making up as I go along is definitely part of it. But
that's
I mean,
how tried and true process.
I mean, it can be. It also can lead to wrong steps. I don't know, non-action. But I feel I've been struggling, or at least I've been feeling like I've been struggling recently, just kind of a little lost, like pulled very much into the material world and really feeling a deep need to take action and to move my life out of like where it is, but not really seeing clearly how to do it.
Right. Well, is that a new thing, or have you been doing that most of your life?
I've been doing that most of my life, but it's feeling both parts of feeling stronger. So I'm feeling in some ways even more pulled in, and in the need to step out of it feels stronger too. So I'm feeling very torn and very unease, which I've been in places of unease before, and it can be a good place to be because it gets you off your ass. But
yes, it is. Irritation and dis-ease is how we keep moving when we don't know what the hell we're doing and we're kind of stuck and we haven't got a clear plan. But a clear plan is good to help relieve some of that irritation and dis-ease and get you into some territory where you're feeling confident and positive and creative about what you're doing. And so you're striding forward towards a realizable goal, when you know you're going to attain, and it's just a question of how long it's going to take and who's going to share the journey with you.
Yeah.
And that's where humanity should be, could be, would be, if we weren't all caught up in our material illusion and glamour. And this is starting to crack. It's a long ways away from the ice going out like it does every winter in Alaska. In the spring, it's solid as hell. You can drive cars out on it in the wintertime, and we would used to do that, go out and spin around on the ice. But in the spring, solid as it is, there comes a time, and they have a big pool on it, and everybody bets their money and when it's going to happen. I'm not sure how exactly they determine the moment to win the pool, because they sell it down to pretty small time increments.
Right.
Where someone says, April 15th at 10:15, I'll take that slot like any other thing. But there's a place somewhere around, I don't know, Nome or something, I don't know where they're doing it, where you hear the ice crack. It starts to crack. And when it cracks, it puts out a really sharp, high-pitched sound, and everybody can hear it. And then once it starts to crack, you hear this crack, 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 and then it goes up the creek and down the creek, and that's the sound of the ice cracking, and it's going to be going out to sea in a minute. And anything out there on it better get the hell off it, or you're going to be riding an ice chunk towards the ocean. So we all would like that to happen to us in terms of our material illusion. Just crack, and out it flows to the ocean.
Yes.
The trouble is we're not equipped to jump to the shore and watch it because we don't have any identity in the spiritual consciousness that could watch it.
Mm.
And so it doesn't matter that the ice has gone out every year for millions of years. If we're not prepared and we're out on the ice, we're stuck and we don't know where to go and we don't know where to put ground under our feet that isn't solid ground, material ground.
Yeah.
So consciousness has been growing in the direction where we have the courage to step into the limitless inner universe that is directly inside of us. Directly inside of you is everywhere you're going to be for the next million years. It's all inside of you because that's where the universe is. Out here is where the ice is. It's where solid land is. It's where material structure has been cemented into place. And it looks real solid until a volcano erupts or we have a giant earthquake or something happens to show us that the material world is just as plastic as any place else. So if we want solid security, we have to open up an identity in ourselves, to ourselves, that lives in a different kind of environment. And that environment is one in which all life in that environment has surrendered itself to love. Now, the problem with that is in this environment, the material environment where we're living and when we're in human life, we are the progenitors of that. We're the first beings, material beings, that have it in us to do that, to actually surrender to that love-based reality and confirm it and become conscious of it and then begin to manifest it through ourselves and thereby bring some stability to the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the mineral kingdom. And because they're down below us, we're the fourth kingdom up. We're the ones that from this outside, where out here, where this material is, we cover these different levels, and we can synthesize that in ourselves into a personality structure of such maturity that we can look up to the next level up here where love rules in one of these inner bands away from the material. And we can define that in ourselves and begin to bring it in and add it to, not eliminate, but add it to the material world in which we find ourselves. And that gives us the shore upon which we can watch the ice go out. And we can stand there in the spiritual world watching the material world transform and watching our personalities transform with it and build a group presence with other humans in that space, and then open that up into the spiritual kingdoms with all those presences that live there. And eventually from the very center here, where am I? The very center here where spirit rules throughout all these different planes and subplanes all the way out to the material, we can encompass a vast field of consciousness and sit around the campfire and sing songs. So
is this part of the bridging to the soul itself? Because the soul has an identity within the love kingdom, so that kind of, if you're bridging to the soul and connecting to that, you're kind of sharing the soul's identity within love.
Well, that's referred to, of course, as the higher ego, which is logical. It's not some mysterious term. It's an ego that lives at higher frequencies, surrendered to love. So whatever it's thinking, whatever your soul is thinking, whatever it's doing today, because it is a real thing, and as all real things in the universe, it's occupied with a pastime today, right now.
Yeah.
In addition to manifesting you in the physical world as a part of its project. But in its nature is a ego that's been growing through the countless lifetimes that your soul has projected itself into matter and then withdrawn at death when the animal dies back to itself. So it's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of these lifetimes. Everybody, all human beings, except maybe something exceptional that I'm not paying attention to or somebody else's, all human beings have lived thousands and thousands of these. So none of us are beginners. We are part of a group soul, different parts, different groups of souls. As we look at humans on the planet, we realize the Danish over here are quite different from those guys in the middle of South America and other places. We all have a little different character. And as we interbreed with each other, which we are prone to do, that's why I'm Irish, English, Scotch, and German. Inside myself, somebody got together with somebody else, and so we synthesize, we mature ourselves as physical beings, but the soul remains fundamentally the same. It's just growing in experience and maturity and constantly encouraging its personality in the world to pay attention to it and to add the world of the soul to the world of material expression. And there's some really fundamental reasons to do this. This is not just a relative living in a foreign country like your parents do in England. This is you living there. And you living there and you living here are split from yourself. Not to mention you living, where am I? Way over here at the very center. At the very center up here in this little yellow circle is your spirit. And so spirit is creating soul a couple levels out in this, maybe the pink area there. Let's see, we have monadic, and then we have atmic, and then we have buddhic. And then this one down, I wish I could see properly what the hell I'm doing. I've got to move my old camera. You can flip a camera, right? So anyway, this out here in this semi-pink area, that's kind of where your soul is located geographically. And it won't necessarily stay there because you're growing inward towards spirit up here in the soul as a maturing process of the soul. It's not just hanging out waiting for you. It's working on its own process of growing more conscious of spirit while it's growing more capable of managing its life through you in the material world. So this is a big project going on. And people who realize this project in motion write books about it, esoteric books, spiritual books. Most of those books are full of horseshit because we're figuring it out. Some of them are written by spiritual beings who live in awareness of all of this in their experience, daily experience. So their books are a little more carefully constructed. And some of those are really astoundingly accurate. And it's our job to discriminate which is which and make those a part of our lessons or teaching or learning. So, and this is why you have people like Eckhart Tolle talking to the public about the now. The now is where all of these beings live. From the outer rim, way out here, I try to point up there because I don't know how else, out here in this last outer seventh ring of the sphere of the cosmic physical universe, that's where we're all living physically. So the now is the time, the only time that all of these beings share. They all share one moment, and that moment is now. Now functions with a concept called duration, which means it happens in your consciousness at a different point of duration than it does up here in spirit, because it has to pass. The ultimate cause of all of us is in our spirit nature up here. And this up here, by the way, is in here, way in there. And way in there is way bigger than out here, as much as that sounds strange. So whatever your spirit is doing from there is passing through a number of levels and entities and planes and subplanes to get to your consciousness. Because not because it's a great distance from here to there. You don't even know what that distance is. It might be closer than the two sides of a piece of paper. But the point is, in your consciousness of it, because you're not conscious of what's going on up here with Monad, it takes a while to filter down to going, oh, wow, I just had a thought. And that thought may have been released from this level of being some time ago, years ago, decades ago, centuries ago. We don't know, depending on your density and how slow you are to come to the bar. So out here in this material spot up here, we're working on just the next couple of levels up and how to coordinate our abstract mind with our concrete mind, with our emotional nature, which is that green band right there, second in. We're trying to coordinate ourselves out here so that we can get a sense of direction and relate back up to this other stuff over there in the higher levels and gather ourselves back together so that you have a body, functioning body on each of these 7 levels, and you have a consciousness that functions in all those bodies simultaneously, and you're coordinated all into making a pizza, which you can do with all of them simultaneously if you learn how. And because it's a big universe inside itself, as well as a big universe, we just see how big it is outside, that those telescopes that keep shooting up into space, they're looking far back into time. They're looking at galaxies out there that are 50 million light years away, which means it took 50 million years for the light of that galaxy to reach the camera that took the picture of it, because it had to journey here before it would ever show up on our film. So inside is even bigger, but because it's functioning in the substance of love from a couple of levels up all the way to the center, time doesn't function that way there. So we don't know. We're way out here on the rim, and people like Eckhart Tolle are trying to tell you, tune into inside yourself, tune in to the universe that's simultaneously living in your own awareness. But because we spent so much time out here on the frontier, way out here where the matter is, and this purple stuff way out beyond the 7th ring of matter isn't in this universe. That's the universe outside of the cosmic physical universe that has something to do with us. It is the place from which we were caused or created by something called life. Not by God. God shows up in the cosmic physical universe, somewhere here managing all of this with a purpose for the life that lives outside of it, completely outside of it, in a state of being that we would have no concept about, because all our concepts are based on living out here in the material world with a few leak-throughs from the spiritual world and no idea what's going on up here with spirit at all. We just no idea what they're doing up there, what they call a happy weekend. So people like Eckhart Tolle and some others, they get this. They had a personality filled with all of its considerations, all of the things that you put your thought around. I know, your family back in England, your job, the third of a dog you own, and where you live and the people you live with and the stuff you're doing. See, we have conceptualizations about life in our brain. And we've grown up, thanks to our parents, living in that. Now, if your parents had been part of a ashram in India, they might have taken some time to have you stop thinking about all those considerations and turn your attention to the eternal now that fills the whole space with love and conscious awareness and contemplation and meditation and those other conceptualized aspects of being still in awareness, they might have trained us a little to do that. Now, you can learn some of that on your own, which I have done over years. I've never been to India. I don't really have any passion to go there and catch dysentery and swim in a Ganges river with body parts floating around. So I don't really go because it's all inside of me. The India that is not out there in the outer rim of material existence, along with us, lives in those inner worlds. And the spiritual masters or beings or gurus or angels or whatever they are that live in India live inside of us in that awareness field, if we want to go have a chat with them. So an Eckhart Tolle is telling you, hang on, slow down. Realize that you were raised with all of this mentalization and emotionalization and physical distraction of addictions and touch and appetite. But inside you is this whole inner universe, all the way to the center of it. And through the center of it, up here where you're, I wonder why I can't figure that out. I don't know. I just don't have that spatial relationship easily done. Up here, where your monad is, the spirit aspect of you, that is a part of you being constantly created, giving you the real individuality that you possess, even down here in the self, the human self. It comes from that self, which creates the soul self out here in this pink layer. And hold on one second. So out here in that pink layer is where your soul is being manifested from that spirit point. So, and that's manifesting the personality out here. But this point up here, this high spirit point, anchors itself in your heart. And that's why your heart beats. So you are coordinated all together. The thread is through the needle, all the way back, from source all the way down to the needle of material being and back to source. The question is, how long will it take you to enter into the awareness field that Eckhart talks about, the power of now, as he likes to call it, and realize what's going on there and start to build your path back to that source. Now, you don't have to worry about that. That's going to take a long time, but it's time for humanity to start doing it, to start recognizing past the illusion that's in our mind from all of these considerations we're building, which are really information about life, not a direct contact with it. Now, I have no idea what Troy was like when they built it, a city that they warred over with Apollo and all those people fighting about what was going on with Helen. But it did exist. And I'm not sure exactly where it is, but over there somewhere towards Greece and all that. But it's not there now. It's just rubble, a few ruins, but they figured out where it was and they went out and found a few stones. But we can build a conception in our mind of what it looked like by taking information from archaeologists and say, okay, this is what Troy looked like when Helen lived here and they were fighting about this thing. But that's in our mind. If you fly to New York and get off the plane at JFK and walk, is JFK in New York? I think so. Anyway, and walk downtown to Broadway and open your sense of awareness and smell and touch and taste and thinking and feeling, you're going to be impacted by the reality of New York. Now, you're only going to process some of it, some of that reality. The spiritual reality, the soul of New York, you might miss entirely. It is a city, and a city is a collective soul of all the souls that contribute to its existence, but we don't see that level. Just as you have a soul, and all of the human beings added together are the human soul. We're all borrowing from the same substance in the soul world. We all have individuality in that world as we're building the experience of our soul nature through living and expanding. But we're all sharing the same stuff, because the unity of love in that kingdom is what eventually will make us stop eating each other and start getting along, because we'll realize that your fingers on your hand are really part of the hand. And there's no point in the little finger beating up the first finger over a chicken leg. So we're going to stop doing that. Mm. Now, all of these are lessons that have been around from the very center to the very periphery for millions of years, longer, way longer than we think. So the fact that it's taken us millions of years to get to the place where we can actually have a conversation about it, even if I'm wrong about all of that, or the spiritual masters are wrong about it, or whoever's right about it, even if we're not correct about it, we're at least thinking about it. We're working on the relationship of being in awareness of each other and in awareness of our inner and deeper realities with one another. Now, we can say these don't exist. There's nothing but a material being animated by eating tacos, but that may not be true. And it's kind of self-defeating as any logical thought. And it's really kind of an emotional idea, because it gives us a sense of authority when we can talk about something as if it were true, when it totally is not true. So there's been plenty of cracks in that illusion, the illusion of the atheist who wants to affirm that there's nothing other than material animation. That's okay. I don't mind. Affirm whatever anyone wants to. But you can't prove it, because it is not, in fact, true. And so the more you work at trying to prove it's true, the closer you're getting to proving that it isn't true. So you can be part of the faithful, trying to demonstrate to yourself the reality of the divine picture that's actually unfolding, or you can go at the idea of trying to prove none of it exists. Either way, you're moving forward, because every step of experience, every breath, brings you closer to contact. The trouble is, for the atheist, it's a constant construction of concepts in the brain about life. Mm. It's like living life through the Encyclopedia Britannica instead of walking out the door and taking a deep breath and going, wow, so this is what my street smells like this morning and feels like this morning. It's a sunny day or it's a rainy day. That's what's going on here. And I'm in touch with this life. That's doesn't say encyclopedias shouldn't exist. It doesn't say anything except that's real. Your senses are informing you of something. And as long as they're informing you of something, you're in touch with that thing, which you're being informed by. And suddenly you see there's a homeless guy living across the street in a doorway. And you think, oh, that wasn't there yesterday. So I wonder how that guy's doing. Obviously, he's having a problem with something and a little struggle. So maybe I can go over and see if he needs a hand. Or we can call the police and tell him, get that guy out of here because he's bringing my street down. We have a lot of ways we can conceptualize that guy. But the only way we're going to know him is if we walk over and tap on him and say, hey, what's up? How you doing? What can I do? Anything I can do for you? Then you're actually bridging that connection. But the moment he turns and looks at you and you smell him and you see what you're looking at and he's cracked out because he's addicted to something which may kill him in the next breath, then there's a part of us that would rather build a conception about him and push him out of our direct contact. Hang on, I'll be back. Here's a water bottle. Get some fresh water. I'll be back. And then you go pick up the phone and you call your conceptualization of a police department to get a conceptualization of a couple of cops and get this guy out of here to wherever it is that they care to drop him, because you don't really care. It's just, you just don't want to have to go out your door and deal directly with him anymore. And that's what we've been doing with our ego, trying to get the world the way we like it.
Yeah.
You know, Trump's clearing all the homeless out, telling all the homeless to leave DC. Okay, great. They're homeless. They don't have a place to go. Well, that makes it easy. Just head down the street and you'll be out of town soon. It isn't a solution, which I think he knows that. It's just that you just can't let your city go to rot because you haven't accommodated these people. These are part of your society.
Yeah.
And that's why in stories and in some points in history, you had a thieves guild. The thieves guild were their own people, and they had their own set of rules, and they had people that were PowerPoints in that guild, and they kind of kept it managed. They are part of your society. You cannot want the insane or the addicted or the criminals to be part of your society, but they already are. What you can do is make their life better by bringing them up into a place where they don't have to resort to those kind of activities in order to sustain themselves. Now, I don't know. We've been at this a long time. I mean, America's only got like 300 years or so of its story, but it's old stock. We came from Europe and other places, other countries. So we're old stock. Africa's stock is old. European stock is old. And so we didn't start out beginners. In England, you've got pubs that are older than America. So
way older, yeah. Way older. I think I saw a post box that was older than America last time I was back in England.
What's a post box?
Oh, a mailbox, but like one that the post office, the postal service would come and pick up. So you put a letter in there because they don't pick it up from your house in England. You have to go to a little red one and you put your letters in, and then at a certain time they come around and they collect all the letters. But
so they deliver to you, but they won't pick up.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's efficient.
But they do put them in convenient places. They're all around. So
yeah, that's what the Irish found out when they were putting bombs in them.
Yes.
So yeah, no, it can be a mess. So why I'm talking about all of this is these are only two things to think about. So you only have two things to think about. Well, those two things are a little more complicated than just one thing, but they're only two things. One is the conceptualizational world, the illusionary world that you have built based on your past. Mm-hmm. And the circumstances that make things out there exist. Colosseum is not in great shape because it's been there for a couple thousand years, but it's still there, and we still drive around it when we're in Rome. So our conceptualization world is the illusionary world of all of the stuff that we have done in the past, and that some of which is still around. And Mount Rushmore, whether you think it should ever have been carved or not, is still there, and it probably won't go anywhere anytime soon. So we can look at that and have a concept about it. We can see Lincoln, or we can see whoever else is on the damn thing, and we can say, oh, look, that's an image of Lincoln. See, that's a conceptualization. We don't know Lincoln very well personally, although when my family came across in wagon trains in the 1800s, great-great-grandpa got to the Platte River and died of whatever fever was going on at the time. So great-great-great-grandma was left trying to drive a wagon by herself. So Abraham Lincoln's nephew got onto her wagon and drove her on and went to Virginia City. So it's not that I have no sense of awareness of Lincoln, but that's kind of some distant stuff. I wasn't at the play. So we have concepts about this stuff. And I've been to Virginia City, where the family lived, where Mark Twain had his newspaper office, and looked around and thought, that's interesting. That's his desk. And I couldn't find any of my family. They're all up there on Boot Hill. And that Boot Hill is like quite old, so it's nothing like the new Boot Hill, and it's kind of hard to tell who is where, but you have at least a sense of what it's like now.
Hmm.
And you look at this town and you think to yourself, in the 1860s, when my great, I guess, grandmother was here, there were 80,000 people living here. And important people would truck through town because there's a lot of silver being mined. The gold ran out, but the silver showed up behind the gold. All that gray dust that was annoying everybody turned out to be silver. And so the history of how all these things move forward in time builds our conceptualization of things, but they're gone. They're gone. They can show you pictures of what the Comstock mine looked like at the time and all the little tunnels and shit, but it's gone now. It's just caved in holes in the ground. So, but the eternal now, that place of awareness that you can check into, that created all of it and is creating all of the manifested universe moment to moment to moment, that you can check into because it's still going on. And you are one of its creations, as is everything else. And you can check in and realize your connectedness to everything else because you are one of it. You're part of it. That comes through your senses. Not all your outer senses, although they're informing you of it. They're informing you of what the outer form looks like in its current state of decay or creation. But the inner reality of it all comes through your inner senses, which are created in us before the outer senses were created. Your inner vision came from, in Indian conversation, they'll talk about the gunas that created the tanmatras, and then the tanmatras on the form of coming from this center out here into the soul level and then out to the physical level. Up here you have the gunas. Those are the principles of the senses created by spirit. Then they manifest into the soul kingdom as the tanmatras, which are the active, dynamic, meaningful ideas being expressed on their way to the physical world. And they are the senses at that level of manifestation. And then out here in the physical world, suddenly you have eyes or ears. The senses create themselves from their origin back here. So this is the flow of creation from the center in us, way in us, in this spiritual world, outward. So your inner vehicles exist because they were created on the way outward to the physical. The physical didn't just appear. And while science can show you dynamics, like what's in the tree is in the seed, or what's in your DNA is in the color of your eyes, they can't know back here what the idea of a human being looks like. What does it look like? What does an idea look like? Well, it's some sort of a little energetic construction. Later, that becomes an ideal in the soul, which is more physical, less abstract, but not yet the idol that we become when we get turned into solid substance. So all of these levels are connected. They're constantly in motion back and forth as we dive into the world and then dive out of the world at death. And then we go back into the soul, which is in constant contact with its monadic source and with its outer person when it's in the world, and all of that's going on. Now, the fact that we're not conscious of it, but we are conscious of concepts about it. We read a book about it once. That's not the same as you going within yourself and touching the soul, which you can do. Anyone can do. Now, you might not feel it because your inner senses are numb, turned off, not unfolded, whatever way you want to describe not having functionality of your inner senses, that's where we all are. We're all as dull as we are, as dead as we are, as unconscious as we are of the inner worlds and the practical senses of sight, touch, smell, taste that will open those worlds up to us. And once those senses start to open in us, that are already there because they were built on the way out to the human stage. So when you come back into them, you're actually recollecting them, recollecting them, or remembering them, or coming back to the realization of, well, I really can see in that inner world. I really can hear there. Now, why can't you do that now if it's built there already? And if spirit built all those bodies on the way out for you to inhabit on the way back, what's keeping me from it? Well, there you could pin that on Mother Nature, because Mother Nature loves its children and knows from its relationship to love what those children need. And so it's not unfolding things to you that you are not ready to apprehend or use. There's a barrier there. There's a protection there. There's a separation there. And humanity, in its long story, somehow lost its thread to consciousness of love, which it should have, because you have it in you. You are a self-conscious, aware being. Why in the hell aren't you aware of the love that's in you and stop all of this hatred and destruction? Well, we don't have to know the answer to that as a conception. Blame it on the devil, blame it on God, blame it on something we did ourselves as original sin. It doesn't matter. If you want to recollect it, if you want to get back into having the freedom of love flowing between your spirit and your personality out in the world, that's up to you. Do you want that or do you not want that?
Yes.
It's already a part of your anatomy. So if it's a part of your anatomy, somebody at some point in creation intended for you to have it. And so there are those among us, like the Buddha, like the others. There's a whole long list of them from Hercules on down, who decided to go get it. As long as it's in me and I've got it, I want to use it. I want to have access to it. And some became great warriors with special powers of warriorship and all that. And some become great geniuses, and some brought languages, and some brought religions, and some brought just tapioca pudding. But the point is, it's all there. It's all available. And any human being, because we're all created from this very center outward, we're all equal back here. But some went out to the outer edge where we are now and started working their way back, and they've actually done it. They can move to this high inner vast spiritual level and chit chat with the great beings that share it with them, that share it with us, that which we can't do. Which is why the Buddha is the guy he is, and why some of his cohorts are fantastic beings. They not only have great concepts of how the universe got exactly where it is from so long ago you wouldn't believe they were thinking that far back, and they're also opened their senses to the point where they're in touch with all of that. Now that's a dual act. One act is being aware of what is inside of you. Eckhart Tolle's field of awareness, and in that field of awareness, all the lives that live there. They don't speak all different languages. They speak love and they speak life. So they can communicate. They understand the meaning of symbols. They have a way of relating. So if you want to relate to love, which fills all of that inner space and the outer space, if you could see it, and the beings that live in there at various levels of, this is a big universe. So there's some pretty big jellyfish out there floating around. a galaxy would be considered to be a living organism at a certain point of maturity, and there's billions of them. A galaxy full of jellyfish with 100 billion stars burning inside each of them. Now, what they're talking about, we have no idea. What they're doing is holding steady with the laws of love and the universe and manifesting together a cooperative, creative universe so it doesn't all just blow apart. And they're all receiving their life, their love, their intelligence, and their will from the same source. This purple stuff that's life itself outside of the whole thing. Now, it's got to be a pretty big life if it's capable of building this entire universe that we live in with all these inner levels from spirit all the way out to matter. That's a big life. That's a big creation. And it may only be one of countless creations. Or it's the only one, but we don't think it's the only one because it doesn't make logical sense. It just sounds so big, we can't imagine it. But anything that can imagine a universe where it's 50 million light years to that galaxy that they took a picture of, you have to realize, 50 million light years to that thing, which is a long ways because light travels a long ways in a year at 186,000 feet per second. So it's fine. It's fine that it's that big. It's fine that you're a permanent, eternal, created part of it. And it's fine that life is filled with love because otherwise it would be a miserable place to live. This universe would be a really hogshead of a place to live, except that love is the creative power. Now, why aren't we experiencing that? Well, to some degree we do, but our conceptualizations are false because we're living in an illusion, and we have built this idea that you could be separate from love, that you could build a creation separate from it, which of course you can't because all those atoms are spinning with love. That's what makes them rotate. That's where quantum mechanics will find out somewhere down the line soon. So Eckhart Tolle's world says, come on in where awareness is, still that babbling mind, creating all these conceptions, and just listen. Just listen to what's going on. Listen to the hum, because it's there. And it's in there with that hum that you're going to unfold the truths that you seek, the path that opens you to that center up there, way up there. So, or way in there.
So Dan, to bring this back to the title, the 3 steps, is the first step to come to the now? Is that what?
No.
Well,
I don't know. See, the Love Foundry is here for the time we are in. And actually, it's the time we're just entering. So we're really kind of I'm not really propelling it. I'm just trying to lay some front yard because the steps are here to be taken. Now, the first, and remember, humanity is a parade. There are some at the front of humanity that are breathtakingly, beautifully conscious and manifest love through themselves in a way that is really unimaginable to us. We can think we know what the Christ is, or Christ consciousness, or a spiritual being that could embody it fully, as Jesus did at one point, and still does, I'm pretty sure. So that's at the front of the parade. The elephants are more towards the rear, followed by us with the shovels, cleaning up after them. So it's a long parade. And like all parades, most of, the marching band and the people that are doing all of that stuff, and the guys riding around in the Cadillacs with the horn heads on the front and waving at the crowd, These are people that live so much of the conceptualizations of their life, being mayor of a small town or owner of a Coca-Cola bottling company. So they're not aware necessarily, not all of them by any means, and because you can't tell, but they're not, generally speaking, I would say 2/3 of humanity is not aware of anything outside of these. Should I point up here? These outer two and a half, really. Only half of this ring right there I'm pointing at. That's the mental worlds. And it has 7 different divisions in them. And from the 4th, halfway up that mental world, outward, all the way out to the material density of matter, rocks, granite, is unconscious. Whatever you build out of that stuff, you don't build into yourself the consciousness of the inner worlds, because none of those lives that make up those, and by the way, that's the physical world out here, the emotional world here, and the mental world here. This red one in here, which is the 4th cosmic, the 4th, I'm looking for the right name for this that won't confuse people. The 4th plane of the cosmic physical plane is the Buddhic plane. That occupies the place that humanity occupies in the 7 kingdoms. So we should be, practically speaking, conscious of the Buddhic plane, which is fully animated by love as individuality. The angels there, everybody living there, stuff that's functioning there. We're not conscious of that. Somewhere between there and where we are, which is halfway down here in this mental world, there's a break in the flow of love. So we don't get it. We don't see it. We don't cognize it until we fix that damaged part or broken part or missing part or the obstructed part. It might just be an illusion that we have placed there that keeps it from flowing into our consciousness. It's certainly not stopping it from flowing to the outer world, because the outer world is filled with love. That's why it can have miracles in it. Love just can pop forth, like Moses at the top of Mount Ararat, where he's waxed the rock and it produces a spring of water. That can happen because love is everywhere. But we are not conscious of it because our conceptualization building power of the intellect has created a barrier to love by the conception, which is based on the past. I don't know what the Alamo looked like, but if you open a book, you'll see a bunch of guys standing around the Alamo, and that's Davy Crockett, and that's so-and-so. So that's not the same as being at the Alamo when Santana's men are bombarding the place. That's a living moment, and it's over now. It's reverberating through the astral plane and through planes where the images of it and the smoke and thunder and fire of it are recorded on the substance of it, like a Akashic record is, but it's over. All the lives that were doing that have moved to where we are now. We are living at the edge of the creative universe. Now, you can think you're in some kind of a matrix, which everything that you have created about yourself is a matrix. And if you believe it's real, then you're not in touch with you who created it and are creating it with every breath. Because those are the two things. That which we have created, which all nature has created, which is the past, the Mount Rushmore with those faces carved in it, and us doing whatever we're collectively doing now together, simultaneously in the now, to make the next appearance unfold outward. And it's all coming from that center, and it's all reaching the outer level in our field of vision, in our senses. But these are physical senses, physical eyes, physical ears, And so we're only seeing what's showing up out here in the cosmic, dense physical, the cosmic, more subtle physical up here in these configurations, animated with love, the harmony with love, the consciousness with love. It looks quite different and it functions far more livingly, because love is the living creative power of the divine life itself from way out there in the cosmos, beyond the cosmic physical universe, in all of its manifestations. So here we are. Now, I want humanity to understand the posture that it can achieve in relationship to its own soul, which lives in you at a little higher, not a very far level, by the way. It's the soul of a human being is living on the mental plane, but it's way up near the Buddhic level, first or second or third subplane from the top. And that's not even that far away, but we are unconscious of its existence, because your brain starts where matter starts, which is at the fourth subplane of the mental. That's material. It can't see into that higher level of vibration. It can't register the reality of it. And that's the place where the lives that make up these lower levels, these are elemental lives in the emotional and the dense physical and even in the mental. They have names for those creatures, anacations and sylphs and gnomes and stuff such as that. And out here in the physical world, we have the crystals, the lives of the minerals. This is all a living place, but the lives are unconscious of love. They have not evolved sufficiently to be able to register that depth. And you're living in a physical body full of crystals, full of crystal and minerals, full of emotional substance, full of mental substance. You have built a brain out of that stuff, and that brain can function. It can do calculations and addition and subtraction and all the material sciences, but it cannot register the depth of the universe where love permeates everything. When you can do that, it's because you have transcended your own physical creation. You've entered into what they call abstract mind, the higher levels of the mental worlds, and there love is available to you. And when you enter into relationship to love there consciously, it opens it all up to you. You don't know what you're looking at because it's a new, like being dropped into New York when you've grown up in Kansas. You just look around at these buildings and you look around at the buses and look around at this mob of people, and it's like, what the hell is this? So you have to live there a while before you start to learn the names of things and how they work and what the business is of the neighborhood. That's fine. That's just time and maturity. But you've got to break out of the material limitations of your physical body, which means the brain and the emotions and the concrete mind, as they call it. The concrete mind is your basic ego. It's like the early version of a personal computer, the Mac 1 or something. It's an operating system. Your ego is an operating system based on what matter can offer you, which actually means the elementals of matter. The livingness of matter put together in a coordinated way can give you a practical ego. Now, if you add love to that practical ego, it changes how it functions. And that's what the soul is building. It's building a higher ego based on how all of these things in the universe work when love is the animating system. But it's not the animating system of matter, so you can't just drop it into a human being. You have to become the living interface between you and that universe, that inner universe. And you can do that. You can become dual. You already have a management system of your ego that was built out here through time. started out when you were running from a cave bear in prehistoric times, thinking to yourself, Jesus, what am I going to do? This son of a bitch is 2,000 pounds. I've got to, maybe I can climb a tree. Maybe I can, I don't know, whatever the hell am I going to do? And so you're asking your system, your intellect system, which is not even thinking now, it's just running on panic and fear, fight and flight, and maybe the damn thing can't swim. So you think, well, maybe I can jump in the water. No, my cousin tried that. That thing can swim faster than we can. Maybe I can climb a cliff. No, that thing can run up a cliff. Like, so you're thinking while you're running, and you're working it out, and you finally find a little hole you can crawl into that's so small he can't get in it. And you live through the day, and that becomes part of your consideration of mind, and you pass that information around to your tribe. And we eventually have grown up from there into someone who could shoot ourselves into space. Now, opening yourself up to this second version out here, where intuitive mind is, where love runs, where awareness can open us into. And this is not limited. This second one, by the way, here, this love character in you isn't limited. It can see the physical world. It knows what it's about. And it can experience the heat coming from a rock that the sun is beating on. It's because your outer senses are informing you. But now that inner character of awareness starts to open up the inner senses. And now your inner sense of that rock, as that forest, as Eckhart says sometimes, if you walk into a forest, you can think about it. You can think, oh, that's a redwood tree. That's a gladiola. I wonder who planted the gladiola here. I wonder how the gladiola got here. So you see, that's busy mind doing conceptualizations about the forest. Or you can stand still and feel the forest. Let the energy of your awareness of the forest permeate you. And that's, as I've said in the previous podcast, when I was talking about how to get this going, in the Marine Corps, we call that situational awareness. You are aware of the situation where you are right now. And you become so powerful with situational awareness, because if you're sitting around speculating on where the enemy might be instead of being aware of where he actually is, you're probably going to not survive very long. If you're up against a very smart enemy, and I was in Vietnam, they're not dummies. The Vietnamese are very clever fellows. So you have to have situational awareness. You've got to be aware of what everything down to the last nit is going on right now in your field of sight, hearing, touch, smell. Smell is one of the things that really will get you killed quickly and can save your life, because we smell. If we smoke cigarettes, that's a smell. And the enemy has very good sense of smell from living out in the woods and jungles. And so you don't just light up, aside from the fact that you can see a cigarette for quite some distance. But it's just, you learn situational awareness. That's awareness. But the inner awareness, what's you're aware of on the astral plane or the emotional world, or what you're aware of in the mental world, you can become sensitive to that too. You can actually become so sensitive, you can feel the thoughts or hear the thoughts of others around you. And you can actually see what's going on in the emotional world. You can see what's going on in the emotional world while you're asleep. You learn how to do that so that you can get some fucking sleep, because you've gone days with no sleep. And so, because everybody's afraid to sleep, they'll cut your throat while you're sleeping because you tune out your ears. So you learn how to tune into the astral world while you're asleep, and ask yourself, because you already live in that world, even when you're asleep, your astral body is still there. You work on programming yourself to wake you up if something's approaching you in that world, because if a human being out there is approaching you physically, they're approaching you astrally at the same time, and they're approaching you mentally, because that's goes with us. Our astral body and our mental body go with our physical body. So that's how situationally aware you can become when your survival depends on it. And it takes months for that to grow in you. If you survive that long, you become more and more and more and more sensitive. And that means you're more and more sensitive to all the terrible things that are happening. That's part of why everybody ends up with PTSD. But you're also becoming sensitive to what's going on in these subtle worlds so that you can survive them. And that's just situational awareness. Well, if you go to New York, you're going to have to do the same thing. It's not quite as dangerous as certain types of situations you can get in war, but it's a damn dangerous place. My nephew Damon, who was black, went to New York to become a ballet dancer. And he was just such an innocent, natural guy and he was living in Watts at the time, which is a dangerous place in itself back in the 70s. But he got accepted to, I think, Alan Ailey Dance Studio in New York, and off he went. And the first day he's there, he gets mugged out on the sidewalk, of course, and they take his money, and he's on his way to the studio very first day. And that's situational awareness, because he came from here and he didn't know what to expect. And so he got hit. Now he was okay, but his mom was like, bring him back. And we all had to say to her, no, calm down. He's going to get to know the people that are there, and they'll take care of him, and they'll teach him what to be situationally aware of, because he needs to do this. And he did need to do it. He danced with them, and then he becomes a member of the Royal Ballet, and then he goes to Europe, and he has a great life dancing his way through. And I'm sure he learned a lot of situational awareness later on in his life. Well, the field of awareness is there for us. It's there to inform us of every reality going on in it. And it takes a lot of growing up in the mind before you can absorb all of that information and correlate it. But living in New York takes some time too. So these two things, what's going on in your memory mind that you have built as a conceptualization of the life you're living, and what you're actually aware of around you, whether it's your outer senses or inner senses, that's the two things. And in the Love Foundry, we're interested in teaching you this awareness aspect of it. Because out here in this conceptual world, it's been conceived by a material brain. So the power of love, which operates as the dynamic creative power in all these inner worlds, is not, and in the outer worlds too, but not in us. Because our material brain, see, the material world isn't aware of love. It's living through it by instinct, mineral instinct, plant instinct, animal instinct, human instinct. These are all animated by love from the soul kingdom of all things. But we're not aware of it any more than a rock is, mostly. Mostly. Plants have sex. Animals have sex. Humans have sex. But we're mostly unaware of the inner world of love. So we have to become aware of it. And we need to become aware of it now, right now, because the power of that in your life, when you're aware of it, changes how you live in the world. You're bringing the soul's higher self down into your human self and bringing the two into situational awareness with each other. And eventually, the higher self of the soul absorbs everything out of the conceptual self, the ego self, that it needs, everything it's ever learned, everything that it is. And then it unifies into a single self. And now you've got the freedom of the center up here, all the way out to the outer here open to us. The royal road is open. The path to full consciousness is open. And the heart is open to embrace love as a power emanating from it. And that's what the Love Foundry is founded to do, to bring alive in the heart the power of love as a conscious, aware energy in you. Now, that might sound like a climbing Everest, and it actually is far harder than climbing Everest, but most people have already reached the base camp at least, or maybe the higher camp, and they've only got to make a final run to get to the top. But either way, wherever the human being is in that parade of life that we're all marching along in through time, because we're not living in the eternal now with love, of course, why would we do that? The eternal now doesn't care about conceptualization. It's constantly unfolding. Ask a dynamic atom of gold or plutonium if it cares to conceive of what it was a second ago. It has no interest in that. It's busy being gold or busy being plutonium, casting off ions. So human beings fully alive and dynamic in the inner worlds that want to live in the outer world of material existence in a human body, you've got to learn how to do those two things. You got to learn how to live out here in the conceptualization side of you, because most of what the human race is doing is based on its memory. We remember how to build a sailboat, so we know how to build a better one. Now we've got all of these electric boats, gas boats, diesel boats, so we're losing the memory of how to build a sailboat. You know, the great builders of sailboats were incredible heroes of their day. And if you've ever been on one designed by John Alden or somebody who was a great sailboat builder, it's like being inside of a great painting or a Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. You realize this is an artist that built a living thing that could sail on the water with wind. And that requires a harmony of nature and a harmony of science and a harmony of understanding wind and sea and ocean and all of that is just breathtaking when it's really beautiful. But it'll be gone at some point because we don't have to build them anymore. And if you love sailing, then you will support the archaeology, and that means the conceptualizations of how great sailboats were built, the great schooners of the 1800s. But when steam engine came along, as crude as it was, that was it, because we didn't care if the wind blew or not. We could get from England to America in a certain number of days, and on it went. So it's okay. I love the beauty of art and a sailboat and all of that era. And so I might like, and I had a grandfather who was a sea captain and a family that was sea captain people, came from England years ago. And so I have a fondness for all of that. But probably by next lifetime, I won't even remember. And Earth will forget. We don't know how we built things, how we made pottery 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 years ago. But now we've got plastics. Great. We got plastics. So but we also have ceramics, and we can just push the button and we can cough out a ceramic pot. So I don't know. I'm not against it. I think it's just how life adapts. But if you're going to participate with the universe of spirit, we've almost given up on spirit. Spirit isn't even talked about, and doesn't seem to have any. From way up here to way out here is a long journey. And spirit has been kind of like, what is that? Well, it's not worth mentioning. We don't really care. It's not something we need to talk about. And so even the religions don't talk about you and how you can, will, should, and do connect to your own spirit.
Yeah.
So it gets forgotten. But unlike the sailboat, spirit is not going anywhere. It's still there, and it's still creating your heartbeat. So you're going to come back around the circle to bumping into spirit and bumping into soul consciousness. I mean, it's hard to imagine it, but around 800, when they did one of those Constantinople meetings of the church, which at that time was basically the Catholic Church. This is not the Sufis and those guys. They had their own thing going. But the Catholic Church at that time got together and said, we're taking spirit out. We're not talking about it anymore. Now, I wouldn't have voted for that. But they, in their wisdom, said, oh, we'll talk about soul and we'll talk about form, and that's it. And then they didn't even really talk about that too much, not anything like the Gnostics did. The Christian religion got rid of the Gnostics. They had to go. They were too advanced. They were way up there in the founding fathers of the church, the people who were building the Vatican in the future. They didn't really know how to deal with the Gnostics because they were talking about the life that's in the soul nature and the life that's in spirit nature, way up there. And these are burgermeisters that are building a church and figuring out how to get bishops going and priests going and stuff like that. So the higher levels of it get lost, except for those who, Tarhid de Hallihan or whatever, I can't remember how to pronounce what, and some of the other great leaders of the church who wrote great books and had great thinking about these spiritual things. And they've kept that sort of alive in the church, but not out in the sermons, not out in the conference connection. So now we have to gain that back. We have to awaken that in it. And that's true of the Masonic order. And that's true of every spiritual process still in motion that hasn't died out, that was founded on reality, on the reality that comes all the way from up there. They have to reawaken to all of that was up there. And most of them have lost it. Most of them have just retreated down to these mental levels or emotional levels because the public didn't want to go there. The public wanted to build conceptions. So there's books about it. There's mentions in the old commentaries of the Tibetan works up in the mountains of Tibet and the mountains of where the great thinkers once thought. And so they're waiting. That stuff still exists and will always exist. But we have to decide that this second place, Eckhart Tolle's place of awareness, we have to start there and begin to become aware of all of this, all the way through all this levels, instead of just the intellectual conceptualizations founded on the past. We build a better mousetrap because we built one to begin with. We had too many mice. They were getting in the grain and getting all over the house. And if you've ever lived in a mouse-infested place, and I have at occasion, it's annoying, very annoying, because they're prolific little bastards, and they just pop, 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 like out more and more come, like rats and like rabbits. So pretty soon they're just like everywhere, and you can't do anything except at a certain point you got to stop and kill about 3/4 of them. Just no way around it. There's just too damn many, because each one can have a few. And, thank God nature's prolific, but the Everglades is being filled up with these snakes and they eat everything. So at some point you got to go out and harvest snakes to get rid of them because they were dropped there by pets, and they grow into 18 to 20 foot anacondas and they kill everything. So nature's puts 1,000 peaches on a tree, and that's fantastic. But when it's mice, mosquitoes, ticks, it could drive you crazy. So you have to control it a little bit if you want to live there with them. Otherwise, you just let it go. There's an island where the cats got loose, and the cats grew up, and the cats took over the freaking island because there's just, they call it Cat Island, and nobody goes there, nobody bothers with it, and there's just way too many, and they're feral and they're cats, and it's just okay. That's really disturbing to the population that originally lived there. And there's the same thing is true of snakes.
Yeah.
The brown snakes and around Tahiti and those places and those Pacific Islands, they can take over an entire island and kill every single bird because they can climb trees, and every single mouse and every single other thing. And then they learn how to swim in the ocean. So, yeah. Now, there's ways, if you cooperate with the inner life that love animates and all these inner rings, there's ways you can cooperate with that to control what's going on out here in the physical world of manifesting lives. But we don't know how to do that yet. We don't know how to talk to Mother Nature in the kingdom of love and say, look, we just can't have all of this proliferation going on. We need some cooperation with how the physical world manifests. Well, human beings are equipped to be able to act as the stewards of the physical world. But because we don't have an open communication through awareness with love in the inner worlds, we just use money, guns, and lawyers. And we smite them. We stamp them out. We poison them. I remember my cousin, who's a very brilliant man, worked for the government, Forest Service, or one of those agencies. And they hired him to go to Madagascar to kill goats. And a lot of the environmental people were, oh my God, the Madagascar goats are really nice animals because they've been there for like thousands of years. But Madagascar is an island off of Africa, and it has an incredibly unique butterflies that are this big and turtles that are unique and all of this stuff. And the goats just proliferated because there were no natural enemies, no lions, no tigers, nothing was eating them. So they got way too many of them because somebody brought them there in the 1500s or something. And they eat everything. Goats could just nibble down to the roots and eat it and eat the roots too. So they had to go. So they went there and they did the noble thing and they killed most of the goats. Now there'll always be goats in Madagascar because they're hardy devils. But to bring things back in balance, we had to do the hard thing, which is kill them. When in nature, maybe we could have done something else with spiritual nature. But we aren't grown up like that yet. We have to open those doors up inside of us. We can't even do that with each other. That's why we're busy killing each other here and there around the planet. We don't have a sense of the inner field of union that persists in all this inner world with all of these fields of life and love and intelligence and will going on that the Buddha talks about with compassion. We're not living that yet. We're conceiving about it. We have concepts of what it would be like if you got up in the morning and had love for breakfast. But you don't. You get up in the morning and have Kicks or Cheerios and off you go to work. And so the Love Foundry, which is our outfit, has decided, I have decided along with others, that this can be learned in a really short period of time by people who want to do it, because you already have everything you need in you. But there's things you don't know how to do. If you use your conceptualization consciousness to try to know what love is, then you're just building more pages in the Encyclopedia Britannica about love. But if you stood in the forest and opened your awareness to the nature of the forest, the livingness of it, you could sense the love that's pulsating through the forest itself, because it's there. And if you want to live in a relationship to it that's positive, you can do that. Now, I grew up in Alaska and lived on islands that had no cities or towns. And once a month, the mailboat comes and delivers you the things you ordered from Sears catalog, if they got that far. And so I know what it's like to live where nature owns the territory and you are just a visitor there, and you harmonize yourself with it. Even though we're logging and cutting down trees, nature doesn't really care about that. But there is it does care about it. It doesn't like strip logging the place. It doesn't mind giving up some trees in harmony with nature. But if you're going to go kill them all, then you're going to find yourself working against the spirit of nature. But you really realize there's a livingness to the place that only your awareness can inform you about. Now, you conceptualize because you're learning how to survive bears and big cats and the freezing water that you don't dare fall into because it's 40 degrees. But all of that's going on. And so part of it is your ego conceptualization of how to live in this wilderness. And part of it is being aware of the wilderness itself, the soul of the wilderness, the soul of the animals, the soul of nature that's there. And so those are two things. Now, all that you're going to learn that Eckhart Tolle is telling you about in the eternal now will unfold as you live in it, like New York. You're not going to get it all at once. You're not going to, you could, because it can happen. It happened to Saul on the road to Damascus. He had no concept of what Christianity was going on about, what Jesus had gone on about. He was busy being a Jewish man who was turning in Christians to the Romans to have them stoned to death or stuff like that, and not feeling good about it because it was bothering him. His conceptualization nature, which comes from the thousands of years of the Jewish unfolding culture, and this brand new Christian thing was just foreign to him, and he didn't get it. And he saw that had been told to him by the authorities of the Jewish culture. This is in conflict with our purpose, and the Romans don't like it because we're talking about God is inside every person and all of that stuff. So he's busy turning all these Christians in to be killed, probably, mostly. And he's not having a good time about it because there's something in him that's got these two parts of him, the awareness of what's really going on and his conceptualizations being in conflict with new conceptualizations which are growing in the Christian world. So he's having trouble. And this happens to all of us. You know, the Muslim guy moves in next door to you on one side and the black guys move in on the other side, and you've suddenly got all these different conceptualizations flowing back and forth across your peaceful spot. And you think, damn, this is getting to be a little bit crowded here. So, but in one moment, his pineal gland and his pituitary gland suddenly had, bam, connected with each other and said, this is what's going on. And it split open his head in a way that the light flashed in his head, and he was blinded for 3 days, and some little girl taking care of him, and all of the story gets written. But he became Paul. Saul became Paul and joined the Christian movement because he realized that the inner world of meaning and love and soul and spiritual consciousness that connects the whole living universe together has to have a higher value in him than the outer world that's in conflict with it. So he immediately realized, because he was not a stupid guy, this is a very smart Jewish man. But how much education did he have? Well, he had education in the church by the church elders. That's how you get it in those days. They didn't go to university. You went to church, and the elders talked to you about the Talmud and the other things that they were educating about. So all of that came into conflict, but he resolved it in himself when he put the right order of things. Reality is, and reality is governed by spirit, the spirit of love, and love itself. And out here in the material world, where we're not conscious of that spirit or that love, that the spirit is the power of, we're missing. We're missing the governing power of the universe in ourselves. It's in us, but we're not conscious of it. So when we adopt a posture in relationship to it, put ourselves in right relationship to it, and act according to that posture, it begins to flow. And then we begin to sense it. Then we begin to realize when I stand still in the forest, I can feel the forest. I feel it suddenly come alive around me, and it feels good. It's thrilling. Now I can think about the forest. I could cut all these trees down and probably make myself rich. My other grandparents did that. They went to the Washington Territory and they built a sawmill on the Skagit River, and they built Seattle, the original Seattle, out of lumber, floated it down the river. Now, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Well, don't ask me, ask them. But it got them a toehold there, and eventually that gentleman, is it him? Yeah, one of the brothers that did that became the first senator of the Washington Territory when it became a state. So progress goes forward. And Seattle is the place that it is, and it's now having its difficulties because it's trying to appease woke consciousness, which wants to treat everybody in the conceptualized world as if they were living in the awareness world. But that doesn't work. Then you're just posturing. Then you're just forcing that on people who are actually trying to live without the power of love, without the harmony of love, without the transformational power, transmutational power, and unity of love, actually a power in them. They're trying to imitate it in the world because there's a sense that that would be a good idea. Let's live as if we all loved each other. But if you don't really love each other, it's going to pervert it and turn into difficulty. Yeah. We actually have to find our way into the power of love to demonstrate how it works, really. Now, that's going to happen, but it's only going to happen when these two things happen in you. And at the Love Foundry, there are 3 stages to those 2 things. The first stage is you realize, I wonder if this is actually real. I wonder if this babbling that this guy's doing is something more than just a concept about love. Because I have to talk about the concept of love, because once you step over into the awareness of it, silence comes. And love comes in the silence. And it can speak out of the silence, but it will only speak to you out of the silence, not through me. The trouble with having people speak through other people, love won't speak through other people. And if you'll notice, when Jesus was passing love around, it wasn't talking to people through him. He didn't say, this is what God's telling me to tell you. This is what love is telling me to tell you. This is what Mother Nature's telling me to tell you. He didn't do that because you have it in you to deal directly through your posture with love, because it's yours. It belongs to you. You are the God of your nature. And the God of all the natures is in that nature. Inward. Go inward, and you'll find all of it there, laid out in a very organized, practical, methodical way that works really well. But you have to become a living component in relationship to it by bringing that second aspect into activity. Now, if you do that, your life will change immediately. Put yourself in the posture of love, even if you're blind. If you're Helen Keller was a mess. Could not hear, could not see. So how is she going to communicate the world of love? How is it going to communicate to her and through her to outward human conduct? She was a mess. She was just blind animal, a blind deaf animal, until someone decided to tame that animal into something that could figure the shit out in a conceptualized consciousness. And she became an enormously powerful human being, conscious of her problem, conscious of her universe inside herself, and how to relate it to the world outside of her, even though she was still blind and deaf. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the miracle of these two working together. But the person who did it, the nurse who helped her, knew that inner world existed inside of her. It's not just taming a beast, it's encouraging her to bring herself to the party. That's a hard thing to teach. And that relationship between that teacher and that student creates a human legend and changes the society in which we all lived. Now, you don't know maybe much about Helen Keller, and at the time, a lot of other people didn't either, but it permeated through the society in which she lived. And she became a famous person, and she affected the medical society and other things. So things come and go. Napoleon came and went, but it changed the world. It changed how we do certain things. And so learning these two things in you and learning what is the inner world of awareness, this world, and what is the outer conception world, and how to separate the two in you, and how to bring the two into the duality of your singularity thinking, and eventually the two will become one. They will eventually fuse together, and conceptualization and awareness will become a single left and right brain function, or inner and outer function, or whatever, however we decide to define it. That will happen because it's just progress. And it takes out, like computers and computer chips. A computer chip which has 1 billion transistors in one chip this big, you don't think it takes a lot of time to do things inside that chip, but that's what chip makers are fighting all the time. It's taking too long for the memory to talk to the chip part, even though it's measured in nanoseconds. But when you have trillion computations, that adds up to too much time. So we want to speed that up. So how do we speed that up? How do we make a better chip? And now they're using photons of light instead of electrons, electrons are like school buses, and photons of light are like Ferraris. So now all of a sudden you can make a chip, and they're about to put it out there. As soon as they get the machines built that'll build one, that are just Ferraris instead of school buses. And they make all these, now they're going to a carbon lattice, which is 1 atom thick, and they're going to shoot the photons through the carbon lattice. So it'll get much smaller. So you keep thinking that can't get smaller and smaller and smaller, but it is, and more computations, and it'll go by 1,000 times what it is today in another year or two. So now then AI can take us over and exterminate the human race, which has been planned for a long time. So, which I never worry about, because I know that the soul of things, the kingdoms of love that live inside us, are way more powerful than AI, which is artificial intelligence. That's real intelligence. Yeah. And it contains love, and love has stupendous properties. But until it becomes the power that radiates and lives in you constantly because of your presence in that kingdom, because your presence in awareness, letting it flood into you, when that becomes your steady driver, and your conceptual mind is not what leads your life, but what you use to keep the bus on the tracks so you don't go off the road, then you're getting in the right relationship. And then your inner worlds that live in this incredibly fast, dynamic world with love and photons of light and all that stuff, then controls the outer world of slowed down material action where we live. And then we start to get a whole new civilizational broadcast going. And we're at the end of a civilization that was not built with love, even though we had loving intentions, even though the founding fathers hoped that humanity would get along through creating this incredible architecture of the American Constitution. We have a hard time doing it, don't we? We're trying to kill it every other election, and we're trying to kill each other, and we're trying to take control of it and remodify it, when all we really need to do is just give each other the right to freedom, add love to what we're doing, and then the rest will take care of itself. But now, out here in the world, and I'll end it here, you first have to become aware that anything I'm talking about is even possible. And that's a matter of awareness. Conceptualization of it is well and truly done. It's all over the internet. It's all in Google. See, Google is all conceptualization.
Yeah.
Who is Jack Nicholson? I don't know Jack Nicholson. I like some of his movies, but I sure as hell don't know him. But I can know a lot about him because it's all in Google. I can know a lot about quantum physics. Well, they don't know much about quantum physics. I can pick something else. I can know a lot about how to build a dam or build a birdhouse from Google. Google's got all that information in there. And now artificial intelligence has all that information. So the conceptualization aspect of humanity is available to everyone just by pushing the button on this device.
Yeah.
The inner world of meaning, where love rules and you live and have a future, that's new territory. That's not Elon Musk trying to kill himself on Mars. That's us connecting to love and life and the power of the universe manifesting itself. Any being from out here in this purple field that can manifest a universe, a whole entire cosmic physical universe, keep it going and bring it to whatever purposeful conclusion it's interested in manifesting, that's not going to go away anytime soon. You don't have to worry about being exterminated. You're not going to be, because you are that universe. You're a piece of it. And it keeps track of every piece of itself because it wants to. It can, but it also wants to. That's why love is its nature. So we might as well join it rather than stay separate from it and keep that unconscious self with love out of our picture. This is where we start. We start here with a conceptualized idea, emotional idea, and physical sensation of life. Now we have to add this to it by opening this up into it, and then bringing this in relationship to that, and letting the two work as a duality in you until that duality becomes a unity animated by the awareness of the universe with love and the conceptualized universe that's our history, how we got here, the common sense that gave us the fact that we don't want to eat the yellow snow. That's all in the conceptualized universe. What is that? Well, that's somewhere where a bear pissed. Don't eat that. That's not going to taste good. So we learned that. Now, it seems obvious to us when we know it now, but at some point it wasn't obvious to us. Nothing was. We were just fumbling around. And at that point in time, way in the past, we were far closer to this inner awareness universe, because we could see and relate to the great beings that lived out here in the physical world that have that inner nature alive in them. And some of them actually helped man figure out and fumble his way towards having a civilization. But we've lost our awareness of those beings that live in this inner world. You think that your prehistoric great 1500 back ancestors were stupid. They weren't stupid. They didn't have a brain functioning. They didn't have any mind functioning that hadn't been awakened yet, but they could live and eat and take care of their young and relate to these great spiritual beings who would give them a hand, because man has been an orphan in this universe to himself and to his parents for a long, long time. And because beings of love care, they care about things. Now, we didn't know that their level of caring with love doesn't mean they give us everything we want. That means they can control the rain or the storm so that it doesn't flood our village. So we assume they're mad at us if the flood comes or the lightning hits our house and electrocutes everybody. We assume that we've done something wrong. So that was us. That was us projecting onto these nature spirits things that they're not telling us that. And we didn't have a brain function and a language function sufficient to say, oh, I get it. And now eventually, as that dried up and went away, the consciousness of it disappeared gradually from humanity. And then, like, the Greeks were like the last of it with the Delphi guys, girls. And so now we are in so material that we don't even believe it ever existed. That's where your parents have gotten to. Now you're trying to awaken to a realization of that all that might not be true. Maybe there was something to that past that I don't know about. And there are a few people who talk about it, spiritual teachers, Rudolf Steiner, stuff like that, where they say, it's there. It's there to be realized. So now we have to work our way back to it by putting the intellect, which we would not have developed the intellect if we'd had somebody showing up every Wednesday to tell us what to do for the rest of the week. We don't need intellect then. We just do it. And that's why gods don't just hang out and tell humanity what to do like cows in the field. You're expected to grow your independent spirit into a god in its own world. So get busy with that. Bring these two into union. Bring love into this guy from this guy, and then you will become a loving expression of the universe as a human being. And that can grow into the whole human race. And then that can grow into us being an educative power in the animal culture and the plant kingdom and so on down. And this long, giant pageant of cosmic maturity can find its way through Earth to a new expression. There is a plan. It's just glacially slow. The God plan manifesting through the universe expects it to take a while. Yeah. So the first stage is figuring that this is possible, true, even though you don't know how it's true, or that it might even not be possible. But you've got Google, you've got Eckhart Tolle, you've got all of these various spiritual teachers and guides and gurus and all the people who have tried to say something about this deeper, more spiritual part of life bursting forth into the material world. So that's number one. So that brings your attention around to say, I'm going to see if I can make this clear to me. And then add number two, which is an opening into that world. Well, if you can do that, then that brings up number three, which is the spirit from way up here in the powerhouse, all the way out through the soul, all the way out to your physical form. And now you have a circuit, electrical circuit, if you think of it in terms of real electricity, flowing between spirit and matter. And that starts to break the control of matter over you. And all of these material entities that are these secret leaders in the world of material entities, these elite people all around the world who get together, the billionaires who form their billionaire club and have their teddy bears picnic and meet in Madagascar or somewhere whenever they want to try to shape the future world, and all the political parties and all the types of governments. Those are just chips in the game. And these are because those people are human beings with integrated personalities of enormous power, tremendous wealth from their power, and probably not a consciousness of the inner reality that includes spirit and soul. They're just wielding material force in a conceptual consciousness and getting other people to agree with it. You make the guns, I'll make this, and I'll do that. And pretty soon we run the whole thing. Now, that's what we're up against. When I say we, I mean the humanity that wants to awaken the two in it and then bring in the third, which is this power of love that comes from spirit, and shift humanity over into a harmony with a universe that lives in love. The whole universe that lives out there in love is willing to cooperate with a humanity that lives in love. But if you want to ignore love, live in the conceptualized universe, block it out, and then just use material power to run your game, money, guns, and lawyers, then love will ignore you because you're walling it off. Now you can break that wall down and you can become an agent of the universe, pouring it through you into your life. You can't force anybody else into it. You can't do this diversity equity thing where you make everybody participate in the way that your conceptualization thinks they should. But you can help people awaken awareness, plug into the inner universe, let love become a power in their life, and then operate their life. And by doing that, we automatically come into harmony with everyone else. We don't have to get together and vote. We just know what the other needs and we help them have it, because love does all of that. It already works. It already works in life. It's a quality that life worked out. I don't know when. No one knows when, but it is a dominant quality in the universe because this is a love-based universe. This is a universe that is teaching love to itself through living, and it has learned it in all these inner worlds, all the way out to right there. And from there out to the dense physical world, we're struggling to figure it out. And because we live out there on the rim, it's like somewhere in there. Well, that somewhere in there is in you, which was the great lesson of Golgotha, where Jesus is crucified for holding that in him. He was killed for doing it, for holding an open pathway all the way to the very center. And the Buddha, who wasn't killed for it, he lived in his 80s after he achieved enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, is holding all the way to it as well. The Buddha is holding the wisdom aspect that fills all the universe, and the Christ consciousness is holding the heart aspect, or the love, all the way through the universe. And those two together are love, wisdom, and that's one aspect of life being taught to the universe, and humanity as part of that universe. So we're in a wonderful game. We're in a wonderfully deep story, and we have a wonderful opportunity right in front of us, because we are here with one, the conceptualization of a universe that might include love, but we don't know for sure until we pop up with this and actually plug in. And all that takes is a posture in you, which is a process of mind, emotion, and physical. Not a complicated process. Commitment, surrender, a few things, and a little practice, and immediately it starts proving itself in your life. And of course, that immediately brings you into conflict with everything in your life that is against that idea, as it did Jesus, except that you're not going to kill yourself because of love being too good. You're going to fight your way through it, and you're going to open that pathway bigger, and you're going to let it flow. And it's going to bring the total universe into your inner sense of unity with you. And that is a joyful, eternal condition to grow and develop in yourself. Why not? And when humanity catches hold of that fire and realizes, oh shit, that's in all of us, every single person, and it cannot be removed. You can kill them, but you can't surgically remove their relationship to it. So it might take some of them a while to get there, considering what they've made of themselves, serial killers, for example, but it can happen in a second. And it does happen in prisons to people where they get into prison and realize, I have really fucked this up. It's done now. I'm in prison for life. I will never get out of here, and I don't deserve to get out of here because I did kill the whole family for nothing. And then it brings us through such angst and power and horror at ourselves that we actually break through. We break through the barrier. And if we can get past the barrier thinking you don't deserve love anymore, then you can have it. You can find it. And then you become a joyful person exactly where you are, even if you're there for the next 40 years. Because you have become an eternal being. You have broken through into that dual unity, and you're on your way to spirit. And you are becoming a forever person. And life always gives another chance because it has no choice. It's endless. Life doesn't have a wastebasket. It just keeps working with everything until it finally comes up to snuff. You know, when you're shaping clay into a pot and it's not getting the right shape, you might squash it all back down to clay again, and then you'll reshape it up again. And even when you finished it and you fire it and you paint it and you look at it and go, oh, that's ugly. But you go make another one. And that one gets ground back down into dust and sand and comes back in clay at some point in the future, and it starts all over again. Nothing is lost in the universe. But we're at a stage where this number one and number two have to become alive in our consciousness.
Yeah. Dan, thank you.
We
have to close this out, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. Carry on. Live the rest of the day. You're going back to England. How soon?
Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll get another podcast in before I go, but we've got to end this one here. Thank you very much, and we will speak to you soon.